So it turns out that last week, WoTC was caught using AI in Magic the Gathering twice. Or sorry, once they were using AI and once it was stolen art. Now,
Okay.
the stolen art, I don't blame them. Basically, there was an artist who's a magic artist who did a couple cards for them, had a picture, and in the background, it was a picture of basically a staircase. And
Yeah, he used a background from another.
right. And one of the other artists who also works with WotC and Magic said, "Hey, why is my painting in your painting?" And sure enough, the internet exploded. They took it and found that the artist who stole the painting, used his painting as a background and then changed it, but not enough, not even close to enough that you could tell that it was the original background. Now, this is very common, especially for backgrounds where you will use reference images, especially for things that are complex, like a trebuchet, or like something that is you can't just draw from memory, that you actually need to use as a reference. But then you change it or modify it so it's not obviously being taken from someone else's work. And not only was this guy caught, but then he said publicly that, oh, he does this all the time. He uses other people's arts for reference. And then he scrubbed his entire public presence off the internet, because I guarantee people were going to start looking and finding that he's done this for other artists.
Right.
And now he's gone.
Right.
The
a couple. Okay.
The first artist, by the way, I guess they were paid probably by WotC because it's all been taken care of. And both these people did magic cards, multiple magic cards, and this card's already out and it's a common, so there's nothing they can do. It's already done.
Right. A couple of things. Number one, there's this line, right, between what is inspiration, what is copying. And I think that is something that is always going, Ed Sheeran just had to defend against a lawsuit. Well, not just, but in the last couple of years, because of this chord progression that he used. And he some artist was and I was then he's like, you can't copyright a chord progression. That's not me stealing your song just because you used 4 chords and I use those same 4 chords. So there's an inspiration, there's a gap between inspiration. And I do agree that if it gets too close, that there is a point to be made about, is this the right thing or not? From my reading of the Twitter, from the person's account, my guess is, and also if you look at the thing, honestly, I don't think the photo, I don't think it looks, yes, it is clearly inspired by it. I don't think it looks like a copy. I actually do think it looks somewhat different. But
it's an exact copy. The windows in the same location, the stairs are the same. If you do an overlay, it's very obviously exactly the same.
Yeah, again, I think that there's enough creative differences and it's in the background that to me it's not a big deal. I don't know anything about the law, but I will say this. I don't think this person would have gotten in any real trouble, but I do think they would have gotten destroyed in the social media sphere. And so that is likely why they, ejected from and deleted their Twitter or whatever, their X account, because but that people are just so protective. I mean, rightfully so, I guess, of artists, and especially nowadays when it's hey, it's bad enough that we already have all these bots and scrapers stealing our art. Now we have to have people stealing it too. But
so this is pretty common in the world of art. So I don't know if anyone knows this, but when Ray Parker Jr. released Ghostbusters, which I'm sure everyone's heard once or twice in their lives, they were sued by Huey Lewis, saying that you took the riff, the melody, primarily the bass line, from his I Want a New Drug song and put it into Ghostbusters. He was sued, and Huey Lewis won. He won the lawsuit because he did. But wait, there's a second crazy part, is that the lawsuit was sealed. And then a few years ago, Huey Lewis said publicly how much he was paid by Ray Parker Jr., and he wasn't allowed. And then Ray Parker Jr. sued Huey Lewis, and he won that lawsuit. So this still's been going on to this day, where they get sued.
my favorite music lawsuit is between Queen and David Bowie and Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice, yeah.
And my favorite part about this, of course, is this is the doom 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 da doom 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 da doom doom. And Vanilla Ice, said, "Oh, I didn't copy it. Mine's different." And of course, the courts
No, it's exactly
disagreed.
the same.
But
Exactly
here's
the
my
same.
favorite part. I saw an interview decades later with Vanilla Ice, and he said, as a result of that, he had to pay all these fines. But what his legal team basically figured out was was cheaper to just buy the rights to Under Pressure. So Vanilla Ice owns Under Pressure. That's how he bought it from them. So he didn't have to, because now he was the copyright holder. And he said in this interview, which was decades later, he said, "I have made so much more money on the residuals from owning the Under Pressure license than I ever did from Ice Ice Baby."
Yeah.
He's like, so he's like, so it was the best thing for me financially ever. And I was like, that is such a funny and awesome story. But yeah.
Oh, weird.
Or the other one is, there's a thing they did. I can't remember the name of what's it called? The duet between Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney.
I know which one. Yeah.
Oh, say what you want. Yeah, that's one. And I guess while they were filming that, like, Paul McCartney gave this interview where he's like, he was talking with Michael Jackson and talking basically about like Michael
Jackson owns the entire Beatles catalog.
How to make money in this. Michael Jackson's like, how to make money in this industry.
Right.
And Paul McCartney was like, you gotta buy the rights to songs, man. And then Michael Jackson went and bought all the Beatles.
He bought he has to buy songs. So Michael Jackson owns all the Beatles. Which is insane.
He's like, oh, good idea. I'll go buy the rights to all of your music. Yeah.
So my question about this is, like, how much can WoTC really be able to police all possible people that their artists that they're hiring are stealing from? Obviously, if they hire an artist who steals or uses AI to steal other things and it's against their policy, they should never hire that artist again. But like, how much can they afford to pay to like do a encyclopedic search of the internet to find?
We'll do it for you guys. We'll as an example. Mark's right. Example: when you get an art submission, Stephen.
Yes.
How do you know that art isn't copied?
A few ways. First, usually what we ask for is so weird that there's nothing to copy it from.
All right, fair.
No, seriously. I also give.
Yeah, but what if somebody
I'm not done.
draws something and then they traced it from something else?
I'm not done.
Right.
I give extensive, very long. In fact, artists have said to me that I give the longest, most detailed art orders they've ever seen. That is another thing I do.
It's probably not a compliment from them, though.
No, it is. In fact, they use several of mine. They use mine as an example to show other clients.
I love your artists. Then I always wrote ones that were too long when I first started at Paizo, and so I was told that I needed to make them shorter because the artists were getting
too bad,
like under pressure from having too much of a description.
Yeah, too bad. That's part of the. Then I don't work with those artists, quite frankly.
I think that artist is cool.
I give them full creativity with our artwork, but I'll say it needs to be a barbarian with piranhas coming out of his arms, wearing cloth armor. Like, you can do the rest. So that's something else. You give enough specific items. The other thing is, when I get it back, it has to be. I always ask for layered Photoshop files. So I can vouch for that. That's one of my artists, by the way. He's saying, "Hey."
So you don't even get like a flattened file. You actually.
Nope. I never do. I almost reject them. I asked it. I also look to see, because I'll get feedback, and so I'll get lots of feedback, and I'll see them doing it, and I don't know. I can just sort of tell after a while. Like, you've been doing it long enough, is that I can tell if someone. I can tell when it's a little fishy. I'll leave it at that. It's like I can sometimes tell when it seems a little fishy, because I might ask for specific things that they don't seem to get back to me fast enough with, or it's too hard for them to draw, or something like that. It's sort of a feel, but if you give enough detail, you're asking for weird stuff, you get layered Photoshop files, hopefully it's not being traced. But tracing is okay. As I said, like, if I ask for someone to give me a trebuchet, I expect them to trace it. In fact, I'll give them reference. I'll even say, use this trebuchet as reference, but make sure it's in your style. And I'm fine with that. That's legal, and that is fine. The big problem is that when it comes to art and all these, like people copying from each other is that they don't get paid that much. So you get paid, I found out it's $1,000 per piece of art for Magic, from what I believe. I've been told. They get to keep the rights, so they get to resell it, because they can often get somewhere between $1,000 to $3,000 for the original art, especially if it's oil or not digital. So that's the other thing. Is that so they get to resell it, and they could also go and like sign. But to answer Mark's question, very easy. You have to have it in the contract where it says if you're caught using someone else's, A, you don't get paid. B, we can sue you for back payments for all, like anything we've ever bought from you, because now it destroys not just this card, but the reputation of all your past cards. And that's kind of it. I mean, unfortunately, the only way you can really enforce it is to tell the artist that they're responsible for not lying, and that will hold up in a court of law, and you can sue them and you'd win. Now, obviously, I don't know if you'd actually get the money back, because that's a whole other issue, but there is a lot of trust when you're working with creative people. You need to have trust that they are creating something semi or wholly original, that they're not copying directly, or if they are, they're using it as reference only. That's it. Yeah. I mean, you can't search the internet. You just can't. I mean, it's unfortunate,
and I have to imagine, especially when it comes to Magic's Gathering, they're going through a lot of cards, and there's several hundred per every set, and they've got sets in the pipeline. In fact, this art was probably made years ago. And so there's no way that they have that level of checking things. So I mean, maybe if it is a copy, and it is, by the standards of art, a copy, that's very shitty on this artist for doing that, obviously. But I don't put any of that fault really on Wizards of the Coast.
Yes and no. I mean, it's definitely not no, actually I don't put any. Yeah, I'll put 5% on Wizards, because
I'll take 5%.
Yeah, because
5%.
they need to also talk to the artist and make sure that they're getting
right. There's also like a buck stops here kind of idea of that, right? Like someone has to be responsible, and at the end of the day, I'm giving my money to you.
Yeah.
But
so they have a little bit of responsibility. The bigger issue was that they were caught using AI art in their upcoming Tomb Raider promotion, where they showed like an 80s basement with Tomb Raider posters, and it was like an 80s TV with wood paneling, and it was so obviously AI art, because the feet on it was a television, like an old-time television on a like credenza. The credenza only had 2 feet instead of 4. The feet looked terrible, and the television had a picture behind the picture of Laura Croft. They literally took a picture of Laura Croft and pasted it on the TV, and didn't even bother fully cropping it correctly. It was incredibly easy to tell, and you just knew it was AI art. Now, this could have been anything. It could have been the advertising agency. This could have been a very easy mistake, and it could have had maybe nothing even to do with WoTC.
It probably was the advertising agency. Yeah. Like, how would it be? How would it be the actual company who decides how the advertising goes? I know that when the Intellect Devourer piece of art was stolen from Paizo in the D&D movie promo, it was absolutely not anyone at WoTC who stole that piece of art. It was only one of the advertising agencies that did.
Correct. So, but the thing is that this is just gonna, I mean, I'll do a whole episode on this because I got more than enough, but this is just going to keep happening, because I hate to say it, as someone who's always looking for, I do use clip art that I purchase legally, but when you say, okay, I need an old-fashioned television, an 80s TV in a basement with wood paneling, you might not get that much. So your options are either A, you don't do that, B, you commission it, which takes a while and you don't have time, or C, you go to an AI artist's and it does it in 5 or 10 minutes. And I hate to say it, this is going to start happening a lot more frequently, and it already is, and it's going to get harder and harder to tell. Now, my example of saying I need to have a barbarian with piranha arms, shooting piranhas at you, that's going to be very hard for AR to do. Not impossible, believe it or not. With enough prompting and work, you can get it, but it's very hard. But if you're saying I need a TV with wood paneling in the background, it's pretty easy for AR to do. And you're going to get more and more of that stuff. In fact, built into Photoshop, it's called adaptive fill, where generative fill, where you could just drag an area. Say there's a sky, you can literally just drag a part of the sky and say clouds, and it just draws clouds, and then you can press buttons until you find the one you like.
And it's damn good.
And it looks perfect. And it's like, well, where did that come from? Who knows? But it's coming from somewhere.
Right.
Someone's getting that.
Now, to be fair, Adobe claims that their generative fill AI model, which goes to their Sensei AI, is only trained on all of the stuff from their Adobe stock, which is fantastically large.
Yeah,
which means they paid for it.
Yeah, they can probably do it because it's like them or Microsoft. There's very few companies out there that have, like, Microsoft owns Getty, so they can do it. Adobe can do it. There's a few out there, but that's it. There's a few companies that have such large libraries that they can actually create generative art from their own libraries and not steal, that they own.
I just want to say, not that I love Adobe because software as a service is horrible, but I will say that they're not Dolly or Midjourney in that way, where they're just kind of scraping this art without any sort of licensing or fee. They're using art basically that they did pay the artist for and said, hey, we're going to buy this from you and use it. So yeah.